What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of Halo Season 1, Episode 1, which is titled Contact. This episode is directed by Otto Bathurst. Now, before we begin, if you like the channel, awesome. Hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell top to find out what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button, as well as commenting below on any video that you watch, including this one. So here we are, we're finally at the very first episode of Halo, which of course is based off the very popular franchise from Xbox. This is a series that has been in the works for a long time, ever since Neil Blomkamp and Peter Jackson were involved. Now of course Steven Spielberg has been involved for most of the series, to be fairly honest, as a producer. He is listed as executive producer, but apparently he did a lot for this series, so it does kind of show when we'll talk about it. But to be fairly honest, this is a series that I've been looking forward to. I love the Halo franchise. Halo Infinite was for the most part a pretty decent game. We still, as of this recording, we still don't have co-op for that game, which is a little annoying, but that's kind of here or there. Master Chief and the Covenant and Halo's universe is very expanded upon. There's books, there's comics, there's Wikipedia pages, there's lore galore in the series, and that's thanks to companies like Bungie and now 343 Studios, who run the entire franchise. And it's also been a series that has, as most video game franchises and TV series that are turned into TV series and movies, is a little worrisome for people, to be fairly honest, and rightfully so, because they have not had a good track record. So when you hear about a God of War series or an Assassin's Creed movie or Uncharted, you have to worry that there's going to be some kind of problematic situation when it comes to that. Well, that in a nutshell is how this series has come along. It's taken forever to come along, and here we are. We finally have the first episode, and I was really excited to get the first two episodes. I really was. Thank you to Paramount for allowing me to see this early, to put out my review on the date, which is when this releases. And I will honestly and definitely say this series has, for at least the first episode, has really done a nice job of being a very strong intro to a new version of Halo, to a new version of this world that is John 117 or Master Chief or the Spartan, so on and so forth. And I was kind of, when I started watching the episode, and then when I finally finished the episode, I think I wasn't breathing for the whole entire series. It's not because the series is, or at least the first episode, isn't action-packed and kind of quite amazing for what it's doing. It's the fact that it actually worked, and it worked really well, and that is such a relief. The people involved in the series took a lot to heart when it came to making this series. There is a level of quality, there is a level of ambition, and there's a level of trying to make this series true to form when it comes to being a Halo franchise product. So with that said, we're going to talk about the first episode. So if you haven't seen it, definitely don't watch this review. To get into kind of the discussion, the synopsis of what this thing is, to spoil it all out, remember, if you've not seen the episode, definitely check it out first and then come back. But this episode opens up planet Madrigal, which is this worn-torn desert planet. It's not a Halo, it's just a planet called Planet Madrigal. And we see a resistance group. I don't know exactly what the thing, it looks like a spiral or spire in the middle of just this desert worn-torn area. I don't know exactly what that is, but we are introduced to this group of rebels. We see them drinking, playing cards. They're doing whatever they need to do. This is when we're introduced to General Jin Ha, who is the father of Quan, who becomes the major character of this series, at least up to the first two episodes. From the minute go, these characters they hate the UNC. They absolutely despise the UNC. There's a character named Vinegar Grath who comes in and is a propagandist. You can see it from the get-go, talking about the UNC and the importance of UNC. But these people have been destroyed. They've been tortured. They've been just put down by the whole UNC, which is a really interesting thing to go to, because my kind of history with Halo is kind of limited. I never read the comics or books, but I don't know if I remember the UNC being so evil. They're very evil in this first episode, which is really strange, because I know in Halo 5, which is the last game before Halo Infinite, John, the main character, Master Chief, went on a quest for Cortana, and it led to the UNC, the Spartans, going after him. But honestly, if you want my honest opinion, it feels a little bit like Star Wars in the sense of the Empire, and you have these Outer Rim people that really don't like the Empire and Coruscant. So that's what it feels like, a little bit what they're aiming for. Well, Quan and her friends go out into the wilderness because there is some desert, there's some trees and forests and stuff like that, and they find this stuff called madrigal, and madrigal is like a fuel way to help people, and in the process they see a Covenant ship, or at least what looks like a Covenant Phantom ship from the game, and they see a hole. And Quan investigates it, or Quan goes up to investigate it, realize what's going on, and she and her group are attacked violently. This is a rated M show, by the way. It's a very violent. It's actually more violent than the video game, which is crazy because there's people dying. You see blood, and you see people getting eviscerated and evaporated, or destroyed and stuff like that. And that was kind of surprising because, like I said, the Halo games are very, very violent. But not in the sense that you see a lot of blood. You see a lot of alien blood, but not a lot of human blood, which is really interesting. And so she is able to escape back to whatever this spire, this outpost, or whatever it is on planet Madrigal. And she tells her father about it. And, of course, the thing you want to do, and the thing that this episode does perfectly, is you want to have the big moment, the moment that is going to set the series apart from every other series, because you have to have that moment where you're introduced to the bad guys, you're introduced to the good guys, and there is an all-out kind of battle that takes place. So if you've seen the trailer, this battle is in the trailer, the battle between the Covenant Elite and, of course, the Rebel individuals. And I will definitely say it's impactful when the Covenant Elite, which are the Covenant are these alien creatures that are the main antagonists in Halo. They come in full force. They're jumping over walls. They're coming through buildings. They're all kinds all over the place. They're destroying people. They have all the guns that you know from the Halo universe, the Halo world, the brute guns that they have. I can't remember what they're called. You see actually I think they're plasma guns, but anyways, you see the plasma sword, which is that really cool weapon. If you know the video game, you know what I'm talking about. And they go balls to the walls killing people, and people try to shoot at these Covenant Elite characters, and they can't get through their shields and stuff like that. And it's really cool because though the visual effects are a little wonky on these characters, you can tell that the money was spent where it needed to be spent, where on these creatures, that they move like the characters in the video games. They talk differently, which is interesting. I don't know how I feel about that because in the game they speak English, but to create different worlds, it's fine, whatever it is. But everybody's starting to fall by the wayside. All the human people, they're starting to die off because they have no defense. And that's when we get the big moment, the moment we are anticipating. This takes place, I think, 15 minutes into, or 10 minutes into the episode, and a UNC ship flies into view, and all of a sudden these little figures start falling from the ship. And who's the first character that we meet? Master Chief in all his glory. He falls down like the thing that Florence Pugh's character in Black Widow jokes about, the landing point, or whatever you want to call it. But it's glorious because we have Master Chief. And we have the rest of the Spartan crew. I think they're called Delta or something. I apologize, I can't remember. I know somebody's going to correct me on that. But they go, they do what they're good. There's always been this rumor about these Spartan characters and how dangerous they are and how you can't kill a Spartan. And that very much happens in this series. The Spartans are strong, they're tall, they're built. They have suits that are incredibly effective when it comes to bullet damage and all that stuff. And it's beautiful to watch all the fighting take place, all the moves that these Spartans are able to do with the slides and, shooting and able to shooting and take down these Covenant Elites. It's also really cool because they do first-person views from Master Chief's view, which has the iconic mask look with the little devices and little readings and the HUD and stuff like that. And, he's able to use his battle rifle and stuff like that, which is really cool. And he has this pistol on his side, which actually attacks to a magnet. And all this stuff is very much a callback to the Spartans, how good they are, how effective they are, the training that they have. And then there is the moment that I smiled, is when Master Chief starts getting viciously fired upon by the Covenant Elites, and you hear the famous low energy thing, the low shields. It does the exact same type of thing, and all of a sudden he hides behind a corner, and you hear, and I'm like, that is a small moment, that is a tiny moment. but that's what you need to do to make a series like this work. And he also has like an emblem. I'm not sure what the emblem is on his side, but I think it's a wolf or something like that. It says 1-2 or something like that. And of course he has 117 on his thing because he's John 117. And it's just like everything about that is awesome. He picks up the turret off the truck just like he's doing the video game. And it's awesome. The visual work needs work. It really does. The points where John jumps is very much like in Spider-Man 2 with Peter Parker when he jumps off the buildings. It is very kind of wonky like that. It doesn't look natural, but it's a show about space rangers. It's a show about aliens. They're trying to kill the space rangers and all the people. So I forgive it a little bit, but we've seen enough sci-fi shows, enough sci-fi properties like Battlestar Galactica where they could probably even the Mandalorian and like Boba Fett, that they need to work on it. You can tell it's a little rough around the edges. But after everything's said and done, the Spartans go off to investigate what's going on in Madrigal, where this Covenant ship is and stuff like that. And then we get the cool intro that is very inspired. What seems to be like Westworld with like we see the background of Spartan. It's all this like weird dissolving of the suit and stuff like that, which is really cool. And there's going to be some stuff that I'm going to talk about which are not going to make people happy and people are going to talk about in the comments. But they go to the area where they see the Phantom, which is one of the Covenant ships in the game as well as the show. In the process of everything, they find themselves in a cave, and Master Chief's like talking about this cave, how the Covenant were excavating and stuff like that, which is kind of stuff you learn about in the video game. And he comes across this artifact, which artifacts are very important, and I think in Halo Infinite as well, but they're important for Halo in general. And he touches it, and he starts getting visions of somebody, a family, a dog, a young kid, which if you put two and two together, and if you watch the episode, you know that there's something there. Has to be John 117, stuff like that. In the process of everything, they get the information, and we go back to Reach. Now, Reach is the planet where the UNC are actually the basis for one of these spin-off games, Halo Reach. It's the headquarters, the Coruscant of Halo, at least what I think is if I remember right. I'm very stupid about this thing sometimes, but I think it's Reach is the kind of the center point for Halo. And it's when we meet Natascha McElhone, who plays, of course, Halsey, who's also in the game. We are introduced to Keyes and Pagnikoski. Keyes is a young like lieutenant, and her father is like in command and stuff like that, and I think their mother's Pagnikoski or whatever it is. But in the process of everything, John is bringing back Quan to Reach to bring her back like he's supposed to. And basically there's something wrong with John Spartan after touching the artifact or whatever it is, and there's something that's affecting him and everything that's going on. There is incidences where Pagnikoski, who I think is the admiral, the leader of everything, is talking about how, make sure everything is in effect. And that's when the Cortana initiative is brought up by Halsey, who Cortana is, of course, the one that talks to you throughout the entire first 4 games or whatever. It's one of the second most important characters in the game, who's an AI technology. But, there's a lot of stuff going on with that whole situation. There's very early, my problems are going to lead into like the Reach stuff and John Spartan doing what he does in this episode, or John 117. And then we have Halsey, who opens up like a pod, and in this pod is either a clone, a grown person, but it's a bald-headed person. I think this is the basis for Cortana. Not entirely sure because I don't recognize any of this from the video game at all. But after all that's said and done, we go to the High Charity, which is the Covenant base of sorts. And this is where we meet Mercy, who's one of the Covenant prophets, which is like the high command, high chief person of the Covenant. And we are also introduced to a character called Maquis, who I'm not familiar with at all. I apologize. I'm sure someone will correct me on that. And they start talking about Master Chief and his abilities and his power, and he has the artifact now, and they need to recover and stuff like that. Very small piece for the episode, but it's going to be made for very important later on, because the prophets are very important to the story, especially with the Covenant. I mean, you start getting later alien groups as the series moves along, but for the first game, it was really the Covenant, and I think the Flood maybe. But they start talking, but then it goes back to the ship that Master Chief is flying and stuff like that, the very famous ship from the game. And Quan wakes up, and in everything that's happening is we get a hollow message from Keyes, who is talking to Quan about maybe setting up a way to show people about the Covenant, what they're doing, and how this battle is a truthful thing. And it's really interesting because Quan is like, we just want our independence. I don't want to throw out propaganda. It's very similar to like the Jennifer Lawrence character in Hunger Games, the last movie or whatever, when she's like, this propaganda isn't working. We can't lie to people. And that's what the UNC is doing. They're lying to people about this major event with the situation at hand. But she's like, we want independence and stuff like that, which I thought was interesting. It's very, very by the book. But the thing about this series, or at least the first episode, that bothered me a little bit is how quickly the UNC makes John 117 or Master Chief turn on them. It's really kind of weird and out of the blue. John, Master Chief talks to Quan and talks about the whole situation at hand, and they're sitting there talking, and John seems to have a change of heart. He talks to Halsey about the thing about bringing the person in. The Pagnikoski and Keys and everybody are talking about Article 72, which is I guess they're going to kill Quan and do an operation or some kind of thing on her. And it's a really weird moment that I hope they kind of iron out as the series moves along, because when Master Chief gets to Article 72 command, kind of like Order 66, he decides to not do it, and instead he breaks the feeds, or he destroys the feeds to his ship, which of course the Reach can see. And I thought that was really weird, because I don't know if it's because of the artifact that is affecting his brain. Even Halsey tries to make an excuse. I don't know. I really don't know where it's going. It's like in Halo 5 Guardians or whatever that's called, where he just kind of turns, but there's a much more interesting narrative there than there is here. And it's just a problem with the script, to be fairly honest. They're doing a lot in this episode to flesh out the world, to give it some kind of hubris, and I found that very, very weird, to be fairly honest. And it plays out now. Master Chief is going to go against the UNC, which, fine, whatever, it's part of these types of series, kind of like what Mandalorian does. But then they start removing the oxygen from Quan, and they can take down the oxygen of Master Chief, and of course Master Chief's able to rise above and turn the air on, and they're heading to Reach, and everybody's put on alert, like Red Code 1 or whatever. And you see what I think is a really cool shot, where you see the Spartans and how they are basically suited up, and it's kind of like, once again, it's kind of like a Westworld with the Bavarian man or whatever that is, that circle with the man holding the ring or whatever. And it's very similar to that. They hold that very similar like Tony Stark and Iron Man. The suit's like attached to them, and they have a gun cavalcade of guns that they can pick from, and everybody starts moving towards the ship that is Master Chief's ship. And it brings the ship down, and there's going to be a thing that needs to be explained. I'm not talking about the other thing. I'll talk about that in a second if you're wondering why I've skipped it. But they bring the ship down, Master Chief's ship, and he touches the artifact. He sees that flashback again, which is what Halsey was explaining to Pagnikoski about. And all of a sudden, everything goes out around Reach, but the ship actually comes back to life, and they shoot off into the next episode, which I'll talk about, which will be the next week. They need to kind of flesh that out a little bit, kind of getting the nuts and bolts of what exactly is going on, because it feels like the turn of Master Chief happens so suddenly that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll see if the writing staff, if the production staff, if the director and all that stuff have a way they can twist it around just enough to fix the problem. But it really takes it down the episode a little bit, just on a simple fact. But it doesn't take the fact that they made a really great video game TV series or a great sci-fi show. So we get to the big elephant in the room, and this is going to be a thing that's either going to piss off a lot of people or make a lot of people happy that they did this. The one thing that has always been a moniker about Master Chief is he never takes off his helmet. His face is never seen. We know it's just, for the most part, it's a standard guy, white guy, standard suit individual with a lot of scars. Well, Quan and Master Chief quickly develop a relationship, and they do the thing that I didn't expect them to do, at least right now. Maybe do like they did with Mandalorian. Master Chief takes off his helmet, and we see his face. Now, if this wasn't Halo, who gives a crap? He took off his helmet. But that is a bold move from the writing staff and crew to do something like that, to take off the helmet of Master Chief and to literally show his face, because that is saying a lot about the series. That is saying we are going to a new direction. We're not playing around. We're not beating around the bush. We are not a video game. We are a TV show. Things are going to be a little bit different in this series. And on top of that, we have a character named Quan who's going to be probably the central figure outside of Master Chief. It's probably going to be like a road trip buddy comedy. Not really buddy comedy, but a road trip movie type of situation or show. But I think it's going to be like a, you know, a pairing between the two, or maybe Quan's going to go off, whatever's going to happen in the later episodes. But that is a bold strike to be different for a series like this, because once again, taking out that helmet is saying a statement, and that's what it means. It's saying that we are going to be different. And I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but it is going to be something that's going to make a lot of people unhappy. It is Pablo Schreiber, I think is his name. He's done a lot of movies, but he is the guy who's playing Master Chief. The voice of Master Chief, you know, is Pablo Schreiber's voice, so it's a little different than the one we know from the game. But I think you can get used to it. It's just a little weird at first and stuff like that. And they didn't introduce, of course, Cortana, so we'll see what happens there, but I'm gonna say right now, this is a excellent start to a video game series, a TV series based off a video game. This is something that is going to, I think, develop into something special. The fact that Steven Spielberg is involved is a great way to say, here we are, here we're throwing our wing out in the open, and you know what, you may enjoy this series. And like I said, they need to work on the special effects and a little bit of storytelling, but you know what? Screw it. I'm giving this a 9.5 out of 10. I was going to give it a 9 out of 10 just on the story elements, but I think there's enough there in the storytelling elements, and there's enough there in the visual look and the lore and the fact that it's Halo and it feels like Halo, and they're introducing some new characters that you may not know. This is not a perfect, but it's a excellent way to start a series. And I just, with episode 2, I just think this is we have something special hopefully here. So 9.5 out of 10 for this first episode. Like I said, once I was doing my non-spoiler review, I was going to give this a 9 out of 10 for this episode, but I think this is a very good, very excellent way to start the series. So, but there you go. That is my take on the very first episode of Halo, which is season 1, episode 1, which is called Contact. Also got to give credit to Otto Bathurst for living up to the stress that I'm sure he was under for trying to make this a good series. So, yeah. So there you go. That is my take on the first episode of Halo. Thank you so much for watching. Comments below. What do you think of the very first episode of Halo? Do you agree? Do you think it was worth a watch? Are you going to follow it from the very first episode? Because this is kind of where people start, you know, either falling off or kind of, you know, keep going. So I love it. Tell me what you think in the comments. But with that said, that'll be my take. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and hit the subscribe button if you like this content. If you like the videos, awesome. Hit that like button and notification bell at the top to find out what's coming next. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next episode of Halo. Peace out.